Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. And in this lesson, we're going to talk about domains and tenants, right? So basically, a domain is based on curator input sources. Okay, so like we've seen, if I go ahead to domain management and I create a new one, I can specify that every event that has the following custom properties, the following log sources, or the following event collectors is going to be assigned to the test domain, right? So if I say every event that has the username, actually let's see all of the available properties. So we can basically scroll and choose which property we want. For example, URL, right? The value, some value here. So every event that has this condition is going to be assigned to the test domain. And every event that is coming from my pfSense is going to be assigned to the test domain. And every event that is coming from curator event collector, from one of my event collectors, I choose this one, is going to be assigned to the test domain. So it's important to notice that everything that is not assigned to a user-defined domain is automatically assigned to the default domain, right? And you can map the same custom property to two different domains. However, the capture result, the value, must be different for each one. And you cannot assign a log source group, event collector, or data gateway to two different domains. When a log source group is assigned to a domain, each of the mapped attributes is visible in the domain management window. Okay, so we've seen how we can create a new domain. It's based on curator input sources, so you can play around with it. And when you create a domain, you also are going to assign a tenant to it, most of the cases. And you have this button right here. You can assign a tenant to it, and you can create a new tenant from the tenant management, right? You can add one here. And let's say, for example, you are a managed security services provider, MSSP, and you are using a single instance of IBM Curator to provide multiple customers with a unified architecture for threat detection and prioritization. So in this scenario, you are onboarding a new client, okay? You provision a new tenant and create a tenant administrator account that does limited administrative duties within their own tenant. And then you're going to limit the access of the tenant administrator so that they can't see or edit information in other tenants, right? So what you would do is first of all, you would create the domain for that client. Then you would create a new tenant for the client. And then you would go to user roles and security profiles, right? And you would create a new role for your client. And in security profiles, you would limit that user to have access only to your new client domains and log sources and networks, right? And then you basically also created a new domain, which is only going to take input that is related to the client based on either a custom property, a log source, or an event collector, or a combination of them. And then only events that are matching that criteria is going to be assigned to the domain that you create. And in addition to the tenant you created, you now have a new client that is basically cannot access any other information from any other clients that you might have defined, and those other clients cannot access your newly created client as well. So that's a very useful thing. It's pretty much a mandatory thing if you are working in a distributed environment where you have to provide multiple customers with a unified architecture. You basically create some sort of a tenant administrator account for each client, and then you limit the permissions it has and the security profiles it has to being able to access only the required resources of that domain that you created. And then each client can access its own sub-deployment, right? Where he's going to see only logs and information and data that is related to his own deployment. So that has been it for this video. And again, I'm going to link some useful documentation reads in the lecture. So make sure you guys read those in order to gain a better understanding on domains and tenants. And this is especially important if you're running a distributed deployment. But if you are not a managed provider, then it's not as important. But it's still good to be knowledgeable about those kind of topics. So I will see you guys in the next video.